Hi, welcome to the OK Room, the Builders of Africa session, where we learn directly from people building real things on the continent. Today's theme is trust at scale. We're talking about how builders earn credibility, shipping constraints, and unlock funding faster. I'm joined today by Maryam Bello, who is a climate and public health builder, and also a youth builder as well. And she's launching Telika AI on May 13. Miriam, hi. How are you doing today?
Hi, Richard. I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing great. It's glad to have you. It's good to have you actually. So nice.
Yeah, thank you. I almost called you test guy because that's what I saw on your screen.
Yeah. Sorry, I was running some things and I just said let me be funny with that. All right. So Miriam, what's the most unexpected thing you've learned about building in Africa?
Well, I mean, there are two sides to the coin. Building from as an African who gets to experience the challenges and then who gets to experience the stereotypes. There's a whole lot of stereotypes about Africa and the risk involved in investing in Africans. I think I've been looking lately towards the finance aspect of building in Africa. And there's a whole lot of stereotypes. And I understand why it exists, especially because of the fact that we don't have a system that makes it easy and a lot of publicity that's made about African entrepreneurship is usually the bad one. So you see, bad news gets published and goes faster than good news. And then secondly, building as an African within Africa, or I wouldn't want to generalize saying Africa. I would speak for Nigeria since this is where I have the most experience building on ground. I've also come to see the challenges. And when I say the challenges, I just have to be honest. I look at it from the perspective of, how do I put the word? There's this professional word they used to describe a situation where there's opportunity for entrepreneurs, but somehow
Mhm.
the opportunity is already given to a specific few that these people that are
Oh,
supposed to fund those few
yeah.
are decided to keep within their circle because it's like you already know who you want to fund. You just put out a public call, probably because whoever's giving them that money wants to see a public call. So I think that makes it really difficult for entrepreneurs to thrive because it just feels like at the end of the day, why do I have to keep making the effort if it's not going to show for it? Or at the end of the day, these guys have already decided who to support financially. So I think that part of the system is really challenging in my own perspective.
Oh, okay. But now the thing is, you've seen these problems, right? And you've faced them. You've seen other people facing them, right? And from your profile, we know that you are into climate and public health. So I'm now wondering, and you started things very young, right? So what problem would you say pulled you into this space of climate and public health? That, oh, a Nigerian wants to go because Nigerians are not really so big on that. And right now, even our health is, a lot of our healthcare workers travel outside the country to, for greener pasture, right? So, but years ago, right, before things started, what made you say, okay, I want to go into all these things? What made it fascinating to you? What problem did you see that you said, I want to solve this?
Anyway, I'm still very young, just so that people don't think I'm old. But when it comes to why I mean, I would also want to probably describe myself again. I'm into the health space, but I'm not a medical doctor or a nurse. I
Okay.
just ran this healthcare practice mobile clinic for a couple of years, like 7 years now. And also started out my journey in the climate field. However, I think I've evolved across policy with a very strong focus on entrepreneurship in Africa and across the global south, entrepreneurship for young people specifically. And because of the perspective that I have, that at the end of the day, our collective efforts helps create the difference that we want to see in the world. But right now, for me, what happened was exposure. So I was exposed
Mm.
to international organizations back then, and I started really early on. I think I got exposed to the topic of climate change when I was like, I don't know, 15. And so I used to try to create this mobile applications to solve problems in my community. And then climate change was one. And I really remember the fact that I hated how hot the weather is. I really dislike the discomfort that comes with the hot weather.
Yeah.
So that was the easiest way for me to describe the ozone layer depletion, when we talk about climate change, because that's how I learned about it in school, ozone layer depletion. When I got to learn, they talk about the firewood, and it just was definitely a lot of problems. So when I tried solving that, it was more around just building an app as a little girl that's trying to solve something in our community, but not as a startup. Eventually, I started the healthcare initiative, which was mostly focused around accessibility for underserved communities. But sometime I think 2022, I started the one of my NGOs across that is targeted at the climate education and solving through technology. And then a year or two later, we discovered climate change impacts so much more than we know. And that's where my co-founder I thought about the solution of integrating a telemedicine system to bridge that gap of climate and healthcare. But yeah, that's how I discovered about that.
No, this is also interesting. And you're
Yeah.
mentioning things about you were young and when you were 15. And when I tell people too that, oh, when I was 15, I was doing this, when I was 13, I was doing that, and they're like, what? Right? And for me, I'm like, well, one of the things you said, exposure, and I don't know, I was just always like that. I found it fascinating to learn things, right? And there's the common example I give where I said by 8 years old, I was already studying on university books. But for you, right, what's brought that thinking to you? What's actually made you think the way you thought then and the way you think now? Because we know, yes, exposure is a part of it, but like there must have been another part. Maybe there was something interesting, or maybe it was a dad factor, an uncle factor, or a friend, or someone you just looked up to online that you just saw somewhere. I want to be like her when I grow up. Is
Let
there
me tell you,
anything like that?
I do not have the best motivation at first. The motivation builds up, the why continues to build up, the things that inspire you continue to build up, and then later on your why makes so much more sense. I think back
Yeah.
then I was solving all these problems because I wanted to travel to the US. Because back then I was participating in competitions where, let's say, if you win, you're going to go to the US. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to go to the US. But eventually it became bigger than the US because I realized I would travel the world regardless. But I know for me, it's more around the fact that where I grew up from was not necessarily the best place to grow up as a young child, as a teenager. In fact, for anybody, it's just that environment that corrupts your thinking, that environment that limits your
Yeah.
thinking, the environment that kills your dream. So, my father, because I'm the only daughter amongst five brothers that I have, my father would say to me that I'm going to be different. He'd say it in this local way, Maryam, you'll be one in town. And it was something that built this, belief in myself that I can always do something. And so whenever I found myself in any space, no matter how little other people would consider it, I would always put myself out there to try to be better. It's just like a competition that I created in my head, striving to be better. And so that's why when I started working on things, even with the limitations that I had, I remember back then I was living in a place called Pape. And there's this NGO that I used to come to, this educational foundation in Gwarimpa in Abuja here. And back sometimes I would not have like transfer money. I have all Saturday because of that experience, by the way. I would save
Wow.
my feeding money and use it to come to Gwarimpa because I didn't want to always disturb my dad because he would say, no, stay back home. So I was always I was always pushing myself, going to cyber cafes. For me, it was more around the belief that I could do something different. So I had to push myself to do things that were very different. But also the belief that I had in my parents, the belief that I had from my brothers, it was really, really inspiring. And then you just God created this community where people are always telling you can do it, even if you don't know what the how would look like. And so I began to see myself in that light, began to have this strong conviction, but also, I don't know how, it's grace, but when you have this strong belief that your why matters, when you remember why you're starting things out, I wanted to be very different from my environment. I didn't want my environment to determine where I would go in life. And when I saw a problem, I always believed, hey, I would use technology to solve that problem. So it's more around rooted around rooted around the belief that I can be different, rooted around the belief that my community had in me, and also the belief that our world can definitely be better. I remember when I saw this TEDx talk from Chidi, where he was mentioning how I think it was the United States, how some of their, I think it was power grids or certain things that are working really well was not really done by the government, but by community members. And I began to see myself as a problem solver. And that's why I keep talking about the fact that I primarily focus a lot more on entrepreneurship, because I see it as a way for any, let me use the word ordinary individuals, that's people who are not necessarily in politics, to actually solve
Yeah.
problems in the community. I just want to solve problems in my community. However, the more I grow, the more experience I've had, now I have a specific focus on how I want to solve those problems.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what you said now is actually is one of the reasons I had in mind, because there was a point in my life where I actually believed that the youths are not serious, right? I just felt like these people are not serious. 'Cause I saw that there were things to do, I could be able to see opportunities. I was really aiming for this, aiming for that, and then everyone is like, there's nothing out there. Oh, where are you people looking? And then hearing all these things and all things you have to go through, I'm like, yes, you see, people can see, right? um, and that's why I love what you do, as you're pushing your development and advocacy around the globe, to be honest. And that's one of the reasons I'm also there, trying to make sure that these people, these youths, we were youths ourselves, right? They can also find opportunities easy. But on that note, as we were about to delve into some more serious things, what's one funny misconception people have of you when they hear your profile, things you've done? What's one funny thing? Just one that they just think about you.
I would start with the funny misconception people have before they know what I do. The first is they look at me, and this literally happened even yesterday. I went out to a
Oh.
restaurant, and someone just sees me. I'm on my laptop. I'm about to start a meeting with my team. And then a random older guy just walks past me, and he's like, "Hey, students." I'm always like, why do you just come to, oh, I'm at the airport and I'm traveling, and someone looks at me and they're like, oh, you're going to school. I don't know, maybe it's a normal question, but it began to feel so weird because why are you always thinking I'm a student? Do I look so small? Well, I mean, I don't think that's the case anyway. And then when people actually get to know me, or people who've known me doing all of this stuff come across me, I see that the misconception is they think I have got it all figured out, but I've not. Because at the end of the day, regardless of how I personally try to talk about failures a lot on social media, so because I know how challenging it is, I know I spoke to a friend of
Yeah.
mine one time, and he said to me, I was like, "Did you see my post on LinkedIn?" He's like, "I've not been on LinkedIn. It's messing with my mental health." I understand him because there's a lot of positive news there. But for me, I try to balance that aspect of the challenges I go through so that people who look up to me know that it's okay to go through some challenges. But to do the
Sorry to
work,
cut in actually.
yeah.
That LinkedIn you just mentioned, you know, I have issues with LinkedIn, and mainly because I've not really been posting there, and it's because I feel like it's fake these days. Like it's, I mean, I know people want to feel good, but now things that you might even feel is, but maybe it's just me that feels like it's not every. For me, like there's some achievements I get, I don't even share, because to me, some people will hear that and be like, oh wow, but this is so good. I'm like, I don't feel like sharing it. But now everyone wants to share every single thing and make it even bigger than it is. Like if you want to share, okay, fine, maybe that's just that's what your preference. But then they make it bigger than it is, and then everybody's always wanting to say this and say that. And I'm like, what
I'm
are you people
happy to
turning this
share
place
that.
to? Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm glad. Like, oh my god, we get it, and it's not even as if like, oh, maybe they are doing a lot of good things, and me, I'm not doing good. I have things going on too, but like, give it a rest. Like, I just feel it's a professional space, but now people have brought it as a space where you can just share anything that you think looks good to push your. Some things are voluntary, and they share it as if it's something that they were picked for. Like for example, Forbes BLK. You can get into Forbes BLK by I think signing up on the form, right? And I'm in Forbes BLK. And then I think there was a particular person that posted it and was saying, oh, I finally got in. And then someone responded to that saying, but this is anybody can just apply and get in. Like it's not, oh, okay, if you apply, they're picking 10 out of 1 million people. No, you're a black person, you are black, right? And you sign up the form and you get the link to join in immediately. But then the next thing, I'm glad to let people know that I've joined. Oh, come on. I mean, if you even want to tell us that, okay, I have joined this platform, I have joined this organization, fine. But they make it seem as if, they went through some rigorous processes. Now, other people are now thinking they cannot do it. Why don't you just tell them, I did this and I got in? So they can also apply and get in. But now you're making it seem, I say, I finally got, not that, I saw some comments and someone like, someday I want to be like you. God, just apply. You can be like that today. You can be like that today. Just
Oh,
do
let
it.
me let me
Yeah.
tell you what I think based on what you said, right? The truth is you wouldn't blame these people. And it's a pattern. It happens because something influenced that, something caused that. And I especially now I'm going to speak from the entrepreneurial side or for the side of people who are looking for jobs, entrepreneurship. Now, a lot of funders out there. Now, I'm also going to speak from the African perspective. But at the end of the day, I apply to
Okay.
a lot of people. I'll just make sure that I'm not over exaggerating. When capital flows into like a region like Africa, or capital flows to entrepreneurs, they have certain requirements. And then the people who tend to exaggerate realize that the people who have a strong profile tend to be the ones who always says, I have this opportunity. So now when they have something small, they want to make it sound big. Now, funders also know that failure is a part of every journey and that failure is very important for growing and evolving. But somehow when it comes to the applications that they put out there, they don't really welcome failure. So everybody's trying to look excellent. And that is a very big problem we have. That is why if you see someone come on LinkedIn and talk about failure, you see a lot of people resonating, a lot of people feeling happy that someone is comfortable sharing their weakness. I remember when I talked, the first time I talked about failure on LinkedIn was, I think, early 2024. I know everybody was talking about their success. I was like, let me come talk about my failure. And I talked about how I had like 60 rejections because I decided to document. I had notes for progress and for rejections. And I kept writing every rejection I got, and it was over 60, including ones I did not write. It was like more, I guess.
Oh,
And I came and talked about it because for me, I'm only where I am today, grateful to God, but also because I failed and learned and became better than what I was. But when I did that, that was the highest engagement I had gotten on LinkedIn as at that time. And people resonated. I remember I got first time I tried having a job, I got a job with one of this very big families in Nigeria, the Antata family, as a special
oh,
assistant. It was much appreciated, and people reached out to me on DM and said, you have made my day better. The thing is, our world is beginning to thrive on fake lifestyle, and the people that are influencing this are the people that young people need to actually grow. When you don't have some sort of enormous profile, some sort of profile that says this guy has done every single thing that or has done something really surprising at the age of 20, they don't take you that serious. And you understand them, but at some point it just makes people become liars. Okay, now look at this. I know there was one Insta interview I saw of a Y Combinator funded startup, and before the controversial information about them came out, the girl was like, "Oh, I dropped out of MIT, and we're building this, we're building that." They got funded. I don't know how many $1 million. It was a lot of money, and it made so much sense. Everybody wanted to hear that story because this is something surprising, something interesting from a young person who dropped out of school. Only a few months, maybe 2 months after I saw that video, then Y Combinator had to put them out of remove them from their cohorts. Funders did not want to
oh,
attach their profile to them because they lied about what they were building. They lied about how if it was working well, they literally lied about everything. So Y Combinator had to take them out. They just literally spoils their reputation. So I don't think people would have to push themselves to lie too much if they didn't see that requirements. You understand? It has to be there. There are obviously people who reach that criteria. It's just that the world functions in a way that it rewards exaggeration more than reality. So I wouldn't blame people, but I don't think personally I'm grateful that I've gotten so far that I don't have to come liar for people to find me interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically your view or your take on it is that they see it as a requirement for success because some people have actually made this requirement for success before they can fund you, before they can help you. Basically, they need to see that, oh, you've done this, you've done that, and now these people have taken it upon themselves to say, this is this is the way, it's a method of survival for them. This they have to do it. They have to just post like this.
It's
And
become a
to be
norm
honest,
now.
I
Everybody just says it.
yeah,
Nobody verifies any information. So yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And I can't even dispute that because, when people, for example, if they want advice, if someone wants to get an advice now, they ask, oh, what should I do? They will say, oh, go and post on LinkedIn. And post, yeah, but what do I post on LinkedIn? When you do this, post it so people can see you're doing well. And not always like that. Well, yeah, I guess it's just one of the things that happens in life, right? And to evolve over
Maybe
time.
I'd add
Um,
to that. There's always obviously the
okay.
good and downside of things. And when it comes to LinkedIn, you should definitely post. So because at the end of the day, you need to have compounding progress. People don't Our world currently functions on your credibility out there. When you have credibility, when someone knows that, oh, Richard has done this with Dangote Group, or Richard has done this with MasterCard Foundation. If MasterCard Foundation can trust Richard, why not me? Or even if Richard has not done anything with MasterCard Foundation, Richard has been pushing. My mentor back then would say they realize that I'm a big fish in a small pond and they want to support me because they realize without their help, this is what I've done. So it doesn't really matter if you have worked with really big organizations. What matters is that you keep showing up there. And when your profile continuously compound, creates about credibility. And it doesn't, the right people would find it okay. The wrong people would be looking for, or may not necessarily be the wrong people, but for your stage, they are not the right people, would be looking for something else. But you need to make sure you have a compounding profile so it doesn't feel like you're just showing up, especially when you've not built that credibility yet. So yeah.
All right. All right. That's actually an interesting take. To be honest, I actually want to link that to the next question in a sense that now people know what to do on LinkedIn, right? They know that, okay, they should go out there and post. But it's some people, it's not just about posting. Some people is that they don't exactly know what to do. So I would say, how did you choose what to build first? I mean, climate is a big problem. Climate is not just climate is this one specific problem. I mean, if you try to maybe bring it down to one specific problem, maybe, but climate is different things causing one thing, right? And maybe even causing many things to be, if I'm being honest, right? But how did you choose what to build first? Like, I mean, you work with Packers Mobile, and it's very impressive work, by the way. So how did you choose, like, your very first business? What did you choose that, okay, this is what I want to build first? Like, how did you filter out the noise and say, maybe, this is the one I have experience in, what exactly was that actually made you choose first?
Just quick question. Are you asking about what I chose to post, or you're asking what I chose to
No, not
build?
post, build, build.
Honestly, how I started Packers was more of around the proposal that I got from my co-founder to work together as co-founders. Then I was
Mm,
17. When you're not a medical doctor, you're doing something in the medical space and you're like, what? But it was a yes for me because back then I just wanted to do anything that was going to solve societal issues. And because the problem of healthcare resonated very well with me, again, because we're targeting rural communities, which kind of felt like the way I grew up from at the same time. So yes, that was one of the things that influenced my decisions. I know you did ask a second question around how I also chose what to put out there when you started with your questions. For me, initially, I think I was just putting any random thing out there. honestly. Any activities, there was a lot of activities, and that was even before I became so deeply engrossed in entrepreneurship. I was putting out a lot of images of, when I participated in competitions as a young girl, or just little things. Then eventually I met my mentor, Shidi. And when I met him, I saw, I think, but he was not my mentor back then. I just met him at a program. And I went on his LinkedIn and I saw like 74,000 followers. And back then I was not active on LinkedIn. I had 4 connections on LinkedIn. I still even know who my first connection is. And I was like, what? This guy is so cool and so humble, just those thoughts. And then he had this content called Dear Entrepreneur. I didn't want to copy his content, but I've always had thoughts that I liked to share, and people would call me motivational speaker. Very interesting. But when I saw the way he was guiding people, it taught me structure. So the reality about anything you do in life is you have to learn. But they say only a foolish man would learn from his experience alone. You have to also learn from other
Yep.
people's experiences. I wouldn't have known all these things because it took him a lot of time to learn. So I didn't have to go through that stress. I saw what he was doing. I learned from structure. I disturbed his life just to learn from him. I wanted to be him, or like him actually, not him. I wanted to be like him. He was so impressive in my head. He was the most impressive person in my cycle back then. And I would post those thoughts that I had, and I think I'm a vulnerable person even till today. Just that sometimes you just have to put the professional angle there, so you are not over
Yeah.
emotional on a professional
Hmm.
site. So I
Yeah.
learned structure from him. I began to talk about the things I needed to talk about. No ChatGPT to refine my write up, just genuine feedback. Yes, genuine feedback,
And
just me being real. And it resonated with people.
mhm,
So, but I started giving the title because you'd always start with what's it called? Dear Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur.
And I started mine with Dear
Yeah.
Change Maker because I wanted to see change in my region. Dear Change Maker. Eventually,
Ah.
people see me on the road and they're like, Change Maker. And I'm like, who are you? That's how I started figuring it out. I cannot tell you, oh, this is what to do, but I think the best thing to do on social media is just to be yourself. But you also have to create a balance between professionalism, emotions, and what's it called? Diplomacy, because there are some topics that are just so
Yeah.
controversial. You just have to put in that diplomacy. Then it also about your mentality, it's also about your mindset, it's also about what you want people to learn. And that's what I focused on doing. But I'm not going to give you all the step because my field or my journey is different from whoever's going to be listening. So they have to learn from someone in their space who has done way better. And learning from someone in your space does not mean you have to have them as a mentor because not everybody have the time to respond to LinkedIn messages. All you have to do
Exactly.
is
100%.
yeah, you just have to go through their profile. In fact, what I did, I went on his LinkedIn, looked at his bio, the way the not the words, but one was focused on what media publications, things that created credibility in his profile. One was focused on his public speaking experience. One was focused like all the structure. And I had some of these things, no matter how small it was back then. I just put my profile according to that. Even my LinkedIn bio right now is good, but I saw someone's bio that was better and I leveraged that structure. You don't always have to figure everything out on your own or you reinvent.
For Miriam, like, I get what you're saying, right? It's all great, but one of the questions I get from people is trust. It's basically on trust, right? Because we know that mistrust hurts founders a lot. So maybe funding, partnerships, customers, hiring. So what really made you know the people you could trust? For example, you mentioned earlier that for Parker's Mobile, you were the co-founder told you, he reached out to you like, oh, okay, let's do this together. Great, but what made you think, oh, I can trust this guy in doing this? And now looking at Chidi, yeah, let's look at what he's doing. Some people are doing rubbish and they're getting away with it. What made you trust these things you were doing? Well, like think of it as you're not just saying telling us your experience, but like you're also helping others that are having these trust issues because a lot of people ask me this all the time.
So let me tell you, working with my co-founder or my first co-founder, because Parker's Mobile Clinic is not the only thing I'm working on right now.
Mhm.
But I would just be very honest with you. I wouldn't do the steps I took in choosing a co-founder is different. The first one is different from what I have now. So like my first co-founder is not necessarily the best example I'll give because I didn't choose him. He chose me. And I was young. I got to know him through my mentor back then, Mrs. Stella. I got to know him through her, and I was a young kid who was excited to just build something and eventually grew, learned, evolved, and all of that. So I wouldn't say I took any necessary step to trust him. As long as he came through
Mhm,
a
mhm,
recommendation from my mentor, that was it. But what I'm building right now, choosing a co-founder was, I didn't even know my co-founders would be my co-founders. That's the interesting thing. But it is very important that you work with people, regardless of your differences. You sort of have this vision, may not be in the exact word that you would put it or that I would put it, but at the end of the day, it's aligned with what you're trying to achieve. These guys share a similar vision and love to solve the same problem, have experience, and know what the true pain point is. If vision is not aligned, one way or the other, you're going to build a great company and Google comes and steals your co-founder because your co-founder is not aligned. Another thing that I did was in choosing them, and I would like to emphasize that I didn't just choose my co-founders. They chose me too. That is very
mm,
important. You should have to choose people who choose you too and people who love the vision as well. Then another thing I did was I realized, like my chief operating officer currently, he's one of my biggest cheerleaders. There are so many opportunities, so many things that have happened. In fact, me sitting on UNICEF's Global Leadership Council was from a recommendation from him. I know that for sure. He didn't have to say it. But there are people who want to see you succeed. And if those people share the same vision as you, then they're going to put in their all to make sure that you guys succeed. Another thing was around people who choosing a co-founder, because I know people want to choose skill, but honestly, you need to choose co-founders or team members that have integrity. If people don't have
mm,
integrity, you cannot work with them. And you cannot, especially as a co-founder, you cannot have a co-founder that you don't trust. Obviously, you
mm,
don't know,
mm.
no matter how you trust people, anybody can betray you.
Yeah,
But you need to
100%.
have a lot of trust in them. Not blind trust, but you need to have that level, some level of trust in them. So I chose co-founders that chose me. I chose co-founders that were aligned with the vision. I chose co-founders that were in love with solving the problem. I chose co-founders that have integrity. Skills is something that can always be learned. But I also chose people that were competent. My
Yeah.
CTO is, oh my God, I wish he would hear this. I know he's always going to be busy, so you might not watch this. But my CTO is like one amazing guy. I would literally recommend him to. In fact, I told him recently that if AWS says you should be their CTO, I think you're very qualified. He has the skill, he has the speed, he has the integrity, he has the leadership. He's all around. So it is not
Is it
easy to come
Nigerian?
across people. No, he's not Nigerian. Don't worry, Nigerian people are like that too. But because I have an international community, so
Yeah.
it's easy. I don't none of my co-founders are Nigerians. Maybe because I don't spend my time in Nigeria that much these days. I
That's
maybe
okay.
so I have nothing against
Don't worry, we
Nigerians.
still we still love you. We love you, don't
Yeah.
worry.
Well, thank you.
Uh,
So, it's I know it's not all these things I'm mentioning. It sounds sweet and nice, but it's not easy. But
yeah.
it just happened when I had my COO join. I told him, I know you and I are going to work together. I just don't know how. In fact, I was even telling him about Telika, which is the initiative I'm talking about. I was telling him about Telika, and he was like, "Oh, this is great." And I'm like, "I don't have money to pay you yet." He's like, "Don't worry, one day we'll figure it out." Back then, I was not even thinking of a CEO. Then one day I sat down, I'm like, "Why haven't I thought about this guy? Because this guy is so good with systems. He's so good with structure. He's in fact, like any company, he's the best CEO anyone can hire, and he loves his
Uh,
job. He goes out of his way to do things. It is not always easy to come by these people. That is why if you don't have that network, you have to start going out. Even if you're an introvert, push yourself because I think on my
100%.
WhatsApp bio, you would see let your purpose be greater than your fear. Because if you are saying you're giving yourself the excuse that,
Hmm,
oh,
sorry.
I'm an
Sorry. Hold
introvert.
on. Let
Yeah.
your purpose be greater than your fear.
Yes.
Word. Don't say power.
Well, I mean, that's
That's
not
a
my
great quote.
original. That's not my
Yeah,
original
yeah, it was
quote.
still a great quote.
Yeah, I would definitely say my original quote so that I can quote it at the end of the video or beginning of the video. But I think you have to learn to push yourself out there. Your why, you see this why, WHY is very, very important because you're going to cry when you're building. You're going to get stuck. You'll be go broke. In fact, you'll be poor. I'm just explaining to you.
You're
It is
touching
going to
my
be so
feelings.
hard. Yes, but when you remember why, and your why has to be good, your why doesn't have to be my why, and it doesn't have to be as enormous, but it has to be very important to you. And when you think about your why, and you remember, as you're crying, you're bringing out your laptop and you're working, it does not mean that you not take care of your mental health, by the way, but you have to have a very important why. And then one way or the other, you figure it out. People that are working as my co-founders right now are not people that I thought I was going to hire. Even my CTO, I didn't even know he was good with tech. I thought he was just good with the investment side because we're focusing a lot on capital. So I was like, hey, I was one day going to my brother's house and I was like, let me get this guy on my team. I don't know. I just wanted to work with him. And I called him and I was talking about the investment side. And like, I was actually a CTO at my other company. I'm like, really? And then we were working at this guy's structure. I'm like, I just had to go and reach out to him, like, your leadership skill is great. So yeah, that's it. Let me not emphasize on
But
that. Something
but
I would love to talk more about this.
yeah, sure. But you've been talking about, you've mentioned Telika AI a couple of times now, and even I have mentioned it because it's something really cool, but I'm going to leave that to you. And so the question I want to ask is, in one sentence, what would you say is Telika AI?
Now it starts with the quote instead. And that's, yeah, my original quote. And that is that if capital shapes the future, how we measure credibility determines who gets to build it. And
Hmm,
Telika is, I mean, you go on Telika, there are features, there are agents, there are so many things out there that exist for founders and for funders. But Telika was built for founders who may not necessarily have the voice, who may not necessarily know anybody at the top, a VC, an accelerator, a grant provider, for them to prove their credibility with their actual work. Maybe some of them are not great storytellers, but they to come and whoever just sees their Teleka score, for example, or their Teleka profile, gets to see how this founder has evolved over time. It's just like LinkedIn, but different. And so what we've
hmm,
built Teleka for, the primary goal for Teleka is to ensure that more capital flows into founders who deserve it, while also making the
hmm.
work simple and easy for founders to continuously use and to continuously build. I hope that
But
answers the
how do you
question.
know? How do you know? How do you know who is verifiable, who is credible? How does Telika work around this?
Well,
Like people
what
know,
we
they want to sign up.
yeah. Okay, so what we do, I was just trying to give you the vision. Don't worry, I'm happy to talk about the process itself. So Telika, an AI
Don't
system
go
that
too much
actually
into the process. Don't go too
no,
much
no,
into the
no,
process. Don't bust our brain with technicalities. What?
nah. I've always thrived on not being so technical when talking about technical stuff. But
Uh,
what we do basically is to help evaluate founders for funders so that funders don't have to say no to Richard before they know who Richard is. They just look at Richard's profile and they're able to tell if this profile deserves their attention. So you come submit your, we call it an application, but it's not necessarily an application. It's just necessary process for us to make things easy for you and for funders. You apply, our AI scores you. It's just like a credit score in this sense. It
yeah.
scores you based on six important dimension of a team, traction, market size, impact, just
Hmm.
creating a whole balance of all this stuff. And then you said, how would these guys know who to trust? Your
Yeah.
Telecap profile is built in a way that you continuously update it with progress, and those progress
Hmm.
compounds over time. And as that progress is compounding over time, a funder who has your Telika ID or your Telika ID obviously has a Telika score, who has your Telika ID, just like your LinkedIn profile, your Telika profile,
Yeah.
are they able to see between January to March, you made an update and your telecast score was initially maybe 600 or 400, and then now you moved to 680 because you got this funding and you have made this
Hmm.
return on investment or you've done this markets. I hope that this is not too technical, but anyway, you have
No,
done
no, no.
certain, made certain progress that matters to how Telika has been designed, and then that way brings about credibility. So your Telika score means so much to a funder because it tells them if you are too early, if you are not ready, if you're investable, or if you are so good that you will call you bankable. And it's, I think, only a few people on Telika that are bankable, right? In the top 1% of Telika founders. But from the founder side, it makes it really easy for any founder because we have, aside from the credibility aspect, make it easy for you to access funding opportunity. And I know it's very
Mm.
difficult to be building, to be handling team, and then also accessing, aside from directly speaking to a funder, but also accessing funding opportunities that you have to apply for. So we have our AI agents, which will be releasing soon. I know you don't know about that, Richard. And the AI agent should help source applications from our pool of sites where these applications exist,
Yeah.
automatically sort them, create pitch decks tailored to the ones that require them, and then you review
Mm.
if it's accurate and you just click on submit. So yeah, there's a whole lot going on Telika, and for funders, it's just once they see your Telika profile, especially your Telika score, it tells them a story before you speak. And Telika is not built on storytelling; it's built on the actual things that work. So it actually helps with proving that you are very good at what you do and that your business is succeeding and that you have been vetted, because that vetting aspect is something that is very scary for a lot of people. So a lot of funders, and that makes it very difficult to invest in founders across the global south, Africa and maybe Latin America and Asia. So yeah, that is
Yeah.
it.
We are passionate about it. Telika AI for the win, right? And
Yes, yes.
just as you said, I did have something I wanted to ask you on that. Because Telika AI looks great, but I'm not going to toot the on of Telika AI so much, right? I would like to first ask before I go deeper that what would you say right now that Telika can't do? Like, what's your most honest explanation of what Telika can't do? It doesn't really have to be a con because at the end of the day, there's going to be limitation, right? So some people they download your platform and they expect it to suddenly perform magic. You know, there's this trend right now. They'll say Melly. Come on, come on.
I think
So what would you say is one thing you can Telika can't do?
I would mention two things actually. One would be based on one question that I had from one of those accelerator programs that are out there that had really strong interest in Telika. And one would be from the founder side. So I'll start with the founder side. What Telika can't do is to continuously update your progress for you. For example, we have
Mm.
the AI agent, and you say the AI agent would help you automatically apply for opportunities. You will also have the Chrome extension that you do it yourself, right? And it exists. But Telika would not make up stories for you. Telika would not serve as ChatGPT that helps you create
Mm.
answers
Mm.
that sound fun. What Telika will do is that it will depend on you as a founder to continuously update your progress. And when it autofills applications for you, for example, it would only improve your application to sound, to, to speak like a founder, but not exaggerate and not lie on your behalf to make the application better. So the strength of what you submit the first time you apply and when you update your profile is what determines the output. So it's like garbage in. If you give in garbage, you get garbage. So if your
Rubbish.
profile is not strong, your applications will be weak. Then the one that what Telka cannot do, especially from the evaluation side, is we cannot really measure intangible. So, for example, what we are doing is for you to get a Telka score, it means that you've been vetted by our AI system, right? So if you have been vetted and you provide information around, we have reached 50,000 people, that is an intangible progress. And Telika cannot tell if that is true because, unless AI would have to walk around and see all the rural communities.
Yeah.
So I help you speak to
Yeah.
those guys. That's something
Yeah.
that we cannot do, or Telika cannot do. Maybe in the future we'll figure it out, but for now, no.
I mean, to be honest, even the actual human founders, how can they tell, right? The human investors, they can't tell themselves, right? So yeah, fair. But like you just talked about, how many people that you've reached. That's one, we can call that like a certain credibility, which is what you were saying earlier. So what would you say are the real signals of credibility in African markets that okay, this is a space I want to go into, and this is a business that is actually doing well? And a second question would be, what's a signal that looks impressive but is actually meaningless? Like maybe on paper they say, "Oh, I've reached this." For example, let's say you have a social media platform and you say, "Oh, we have 2,000 sign-ups." But out of the 2,000 sign-ups, it's only 10 people. Only 10 people use it, maybe up to an hour a day, and the rest don't even use it at all. To me, that doesn't make sense. You think it's impressive that 2,000 people signed up, but they're not using it, and it's a social media platform. So what would you say are the real signs of credibility? And one thing that actually looks impressive that you've noticed in a lot of founders that it may look impressive, but it's actually meaningless. It's not that deep. Like they think when they say this thing, investors will suddenly start begging them on the knees that please come and take my money. But actually, like no one cares. What would you say that is?
Yeah, so when it comes to the sign of credibility, I would speak about it from the investor perspective. And that is that, oh, no, it's more around saturation, actually. So sometimes when investors from outside or even within realize that, oh, a lot of people are building, like now, there's so many strong interest in the fintech area because people have seen
Mhm.
businesses like Money Points and OPay make
Mhm.
progress. Now investors are very interested in fintech space. It's for them the sign of credibility that, oh, this founders that may be building this are founders who might want to back. But the actual truth is I feel in terms of figuring out what credibility looks like would be found for me would be founders who have been able to build in a space that is difficult, that is like really, really difficult, and are able to get some very, very good traction in it. And when I say very good traction, I'm not saying they've reached 1 million people or they've raised $50 billion. It could actually be that normally, so it's just like you're solving a problem in a community, in a rural area, and your solution is tech enabled. But these people are not necessarily people who would adopt such solution, and you figure out a way to make it adoptable. For me, I think that's a sign of credibility because at the end of the day, it shows that um you're able to figure out what other people have not been able to figure out. And another one would not necessarily be you reinventing the wheel. If you are someone who knows how to look at what already exists, existing blueprint that has worked, improve that or figure out the weaknesses and still continuously build. So for me, I'm speaking around the founder, not just the product. So this is my own opinion based on some of the patterns I've noticed. There's obviously the whole list that already exists out there on Google, but it's just what I've noticed. Then when it comes to credibility signal that is not necessarily valuable, it is valuable. So let me start with the advice I got from my mentor one time. He said to me, tell what you build, make sure that what you're actually building is working and don't focus on, well, how did he put that word? He said, don't focus on I cannot remember the words, but it was more around you not focusing on the things that makes you sound cool, but doesn't actually help the business grow. So there's a credibility signal when it comes to UNDP featured us, they not fund you. I went to the United Nations to speak about Telika, which is great. And it's part of credibility signal because these guys trust you. And, or maybe you had, I don't know, some of these things that makes you sound interesting, makes you sound wanted, makes you sound needed. But if the actual solution is not working, or if you going to the United Nations does not help you convert more users, it is meaningless to you at some point, or in terms of retention, and it is very important to be able to retain users. If you being featured by UNDP or by YC does not necessarily give you more users or push investors towards your site or funders or just does not actually help your business grow, then it does not make sense. Even in fact, even raising capital and that there are people who would raise money and they don't actually end up using it to build the business because the business is not one which would actually function. They just sound so cool,
Mm.
but they are not actually getting any result from that money. It's not able to help them grow. It's not able to help them scale. It's not going to their business will not grow even with the money. Then that is the wrong kind of credibility signal. Or the signal that what you're doing works. What matters the most is that what you are building will continuously work. And I said to myself, the next thing I build, even if I get $1,000, and I swore over, even if I get $1,000, it is very important that if I don't get another $1,000, I would be able to use that $1,000 that I've gotten to build something that can sustain itself. If I need more money, it is to scale, not because the business is not functioning anymore. So that's it.
That's actually very important. And I mean, you're busting my brain here, as I was, I was about to say. This what you've said here now is we can call it a master class. I should probably send you about maybe I don't know if you can accept $100,000. It's not much, but let me to manage it. It's a
Of
wonderful
course.
master
Please
class.
send it to
So
me.
so I have I think three rapid fire questions I want to ask you, and then from there we'll just wrap it up with Telika AI because I feel I want to just put in like in sort of summary what it really means to people like this because this is it, right? And then you can give like a sort of closing as well, and we end. So are you ready for the rapid fire?
Of course.
Okay. So this is one that I am actually speaking about at the State Secretariat of Oyo State Secretariat in a few days. How do you build credibility when you're early and unknown?
So you just want to turn me to a personal ChatGPT. No worries.
I will tell them, oh, Maryam Bello said this. And listen well because she's a TEDx speaker, you know. But
So your question again, can you kindly repeat it?
how do you build credibility when you're early and unknown?
I don't know if credibility is the word to use in this space because you are not just building credit. I mean, yeah, it could be credibility, could not be credibility. I don't know. But when you're starting out, I think what works best is not just about you trying to prove that you are good with what you're doing, but it's about you learning. And I know there are a lot of people who don't
Mm,
realize learning is very important. I know not all of us like school, but it's not the kind of school learning I'm talking about. You have to
mm,
learn for you to even be competent enough to speak about something. And that means that you have to put yourself in spaces that are bigger than where you are or bigger than the knowledge that you currently have for you to be able to even speak about it first. So what I would advise anybody starting out, whether it's you're an entrepreneur or not, is volunteering. You have to be willing to give to receive. And when you're giving, you have to put your effort. I don't know how all of volunteering positions are paid, but you have to put yourself in a position where you're helping people, you're learning. I know for myself, I learned structure because I saw people do it. I learned structure. In fact, I
mm.
learned to speak like a CEO because I had Fortune 500 CEOs speak or even interview me or I interviewed them. I volunteered. I didn't get paid for so many things when I was starting out. Then another thing is, as you're doing these things, building credibility, actually people trust you based on how you speak or what you say or what comes out of your mouth or how you make them feel when they read your content or when they come across your contents, then they remember you for that thing. So you have to then put these words out there. Like I'm saying, you don't have to over exaggerate. You come on social media, you don't come talk about people's secret on social media, but you come on social, which is our second world right now. You come on it to talk about what you've learned, or you start giving advice based on what you've learned. So, for example, did you know that you should not do your files this certain way, especially when you're working with this kind of Fortune 500 CEOs because they find it as disrespectful? Then you bring your own personal, sorry, your own personal side of the story into it. You just begin to show people how you think. And when people see how you think, you don't sometimes have to chase opportunities. They recommend you to them. I got to a stage where I don't apply for things, I get recommended for them. That is what credibility is. Showing up and showing up in your own authentic self while trying to keep it professional and diplomatic. Then another thing, okay, so now I'm saying volunteering to learn from other people's experience. and then putting word out there. And then one other thing is implementation. If you're somebody who comes and talks, like I like advocacy that comes with implementation, not just advocacy that says stop killing people or stop
Yeah.
corruption, but advocacy that comes with implementation. So you could come back and say, last week I talked about this. This is what I did different. This is what I learned. You need to teach people. When you teach people, people trust you. It's even in social media marketing, when you teach people, people will begin to trust you. When you show people your knowledge, people will begin to lean into you. So in fact, if you tomorrow you have a product, well, I didn't know I was a pro, but anyway, if you have a product, people would want to buy from you because they have seen that you understand the system, you understand the process. Credibility, building credibility is also just showing up. You need to have a compounding proof, and it does not have to only be success. Sometimes it comes with failure because now that there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of virtual reality that exists out there, people are beginning to lean back into authenticity, and you have to learn to be authentic. Yeah.
That was amazing. It was 100% not rapid fire. but, but it was amazing. I just felt like, we had to let people hear that because a lot of people don't know these things actually. They're just looking for ways to just, they get in the game. Their main thing is they want to get money fast. And I mean, I feel like I get it, you want to make money, but sometimes it's something that takes time. And at the time, the money will be the one chasing after you if you do well enough. So I had to just let us discuss that. The next question is a mistake you keep seeing young founders make. This one has to be short though. We're way past time. So yeah,
That's what
what's a
we're
mistake
proud.
you keep seeing young founders make?
So I have to think about that one actually. So maybe the thinking process is what will be long. A mistake I keep seeing founders make. I don't know why nothing is coming to my mind, or do I see a lot of it? Oh yes, one. When you're looking for opportunity, you just come on. I mean, you want mentorship or you want something for somebody, and then you're coming on
Mhm.
LinkedIn and you're telling me hi, and you're waiting for them to tell you hello. Don't do that. It's
Yeah,
it's
that
not
that irks me too. I'm like, you're not ready.
or you're making an ask without showing me why I should. So there are some people who tell me who would reach out and say, I don't know if it's going to be rapid, but forgive me if it's not. There are people who would come and say they want to build in the energy space and they're looking for mentorship. So you have to show me. So one thing is this is how humans function, whether we like it or not, whether I want to speak against it or not, is we like to see, or people that you are admiring like to see that you have done something for yourself and then you are expressing challenge in this space and that you actually know me. So sometimes you have to reference what that person has done and how it aligns with why you want them to support you, and then make a clear ask, not just waiting for me to encourage you. Because the more you grow bigger, the more responsibility you have. There's this person that I always love when I remember how we connected. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn. He wanted me to nominate him for this community called Sigma Squared. And his profile back then was not strong enough to get into Sigma. And I said to him, I just make more progress, let me know, and I'll nominate you else because I know you're going to get rejected because of it's very difficult to get into this community. I says fine. Then a few months later, he reaches out and his profile has not improved that much. But I still encouraged him, told him what he needed to do. In my mind, I thought that was it. I've even forgotten about this person. And then one day he just comes out, maybe like 4 months later, I don't know, and just gave me this, oh, this is what I've done. And now and I'm ready. And I could not say no to this person because it is very important for people to see that you have done the work and that you're just stuck and you need that support. And it made it easy for me to support him. It was so good. The relationship became really interesting. So you have to put the work before you ask people. And sometimes what you need is not mentorship to say, oh, come and be my mentor. Just ask me a question. Because all you need sometimes is just one answer to your question
Yeah,
and you move
one
on.
answer.
That's it. I know this is not rapid. Forgive me. Go ahead.
That's okay. We have the final question, which is about a bit about the topic of Telika. What's one unpopular truth about fundraising conversations?
What is what?
One unpopular truth about fundraising conversations.
I think it's not necessarily unpopular. But it's very, very important. Your team, you as the founder or the CEO, especially the funders, and I'm not saying just venture capitals, funders are betting on you, your conviction, your speed. I don't know if passion is the word to use, but your passion, your obsession with the problem, your story, more than the product. Before your product, everybody's building an AI agent or AI or whatever. But before your products, your team, again, like you are part of your team, but the CEO is the number one. Then the team itself are very important for credibility. Very, very important. Because for example, I'm operating in a space where if I just come and say this is what I want to do, I want to help with capital deployment across global south. I'm like, why this little girl? But when you see the people on my team, you realize that these guys are not here to play. You realize that this team has their own track record. So your team is very important. You as the CEO is very important. That is why what you put out there, especially on a professional platform like LinkedIn, is important. And the traction you've made, there's always this conviction in your voice when you know what you're doing, when you're speaking to people, probably like how I'm speaking right now. There's always this conviction, and people are forced to believe in people who believe in themselves, and people who may not know the how entirely, but they know what they want, the next step, and then they are humble enough to say, I am not just looking for money. I'm looking for people who would fund me and guide me because I don't know it all. Because funders want to be a part of your journey. Not all, but most of them want to be a part of your journey. And when you're humble enough, they'll do whatever it takes to get you to where you need to be. Yeah, that's it.
That's amazing. Simply amazing. Wow. 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 That was amazing. Miriam, thank you for this. This has been warm, interesting, exciting, high energies, and once again, amazing. I would like to add one more thing about Telika AI. It's not a question. It's just if you're watching this, I want you to actually try out Telika AI. Telika AI will be launched as of May 13, 2026, right? And it's a platform that can potentially change the game for you. It's not just I have a score. No, it's more than just having a score. Telika AI is that platform that you can trust to guide you 100%. And not just guiding you, you're always looking for opportunities, right? Telika AI as a spot for opportunities that match what you need to do. All you have to just do is click apply and it takes you through it. So Telika AI is more than just a scoreboard for you that lets people trust you that, oh, he has a high score. It's more than a video game. Let me call it that, right? It's also a guide, it's a teacher, right? And it's also like a memory bank, right? A memory bank. Telika AI is something you definitely want to sign up on. And as I said, it's will be launched soon. Telika.ai. Once you go to Telika.ai, you'll find Telika there and then smooth, smooth entry, right? So once again, Miriam, thank you for joining us today. It's really great having you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm happy with the conversations and the questions we've had. And at least now I know I'm doing something right if Richard is serving as the evangelist for Teleka without me asking.
Yeah, you are. You are. It's amazing. All right. So to the viewers, this is Builders of Africa, where we spotlight and also learn from those who are actually building things that are impacting people in Africa. See you next section. Bye.
Right.